Okay students, so in this video I am going to explain you another strategy to solve trigonometric equations. Now look at in this equation, uh, again we have two different trigonometric function at this in the same equation, and there is not one of also we don't have square in one of the trigonometric function that we can apply um, a Pythagorean identity to simplify it, right? So what are you going to do? I will try to first separate both of them through by from each other, and it will be like this. It will be like secant x equals to 1 plus cot x. Okay, now you know that if we have square on them, we can apply Pythagorean identity. So how we can get square on both? So I am going to square on both sides. Okay, once you will square on both sides, here it will become secant squared x equals to, now this is a complete squared, it's this form. I'm going to write it down formula right here. A plus b whole squared is equals to a squared plus b squared plus 2ab. now here a is presenting 1, so 1 squared plus b squared means cot squared x plus 2ab plus 2a is 1 and b is cot x. Clear? All right, now let's do a little bit of simplification. We know this cosecant squared x, if you remember a Pythagorean identity, that cosecant squared x is equals to 1 plus cot squared x. Okay, this is an identity, and this identity I'm going to use right here. Now cosecant squared x I will replace with 1 plus cot squared x equals to 1 squared is 1 plus cot squared is, it will stay same, cot squared x plus 2 cot x. Maybe you will be questioning yourself, like why didn't we apply identity on 1 plus cot squared x? And the reason is we are trying to get only one trig function in the whole question. Now you can see that we have only cot or cot square, I mean doesn't matter, but cot x in our equation, right? Now we can end it up with some solution. Okay, now let's make this whole equation equals to 0. So I will take the left side terms on the right side, and it's going to be 0 equals to 1 plus cot squared x plus 2 cot x, and the term which were on the left side, they are going to be on the right side by changing the signs, and they are going to be minus 1 minus cot squared x. Clear? Now let's simplify. 1 and minus 1 will cancel out, plus cot squared x minus cot squared x will cancel out each other, and we are left with only 0 equals to 2 cot x. Dividing by 2 on both sides, you will left with cot x equals to 0. To find the value of x, you have to take cot inverse, but there is no option in the calculator to get the value of cot inverse. Now what do? We know that the identity of cot x is cos x over sin x equals to 0. Now we need to figure out at what value of cos equals to 0, because if you try to find at what value sine is equals to 0, then the function will become undefined. Now look at this one. I will say that cos 90 over sine 90 equals to 0. Now cos 90 is 0 over sine 90 is 1, but 0 over 1 is 0, so 0 equals to 0. It means the one value of x is x equals to 90. Okay, is there any other value that cos becomes 0? And that is 270. So that the other value is going to be cos 270 over sine 270 equals to 0. Cos 270 is 0 over sine 270 is -1. Now 0 over -1 is 0, so 0 equals to 0. It means this is correct. So other x value is 270. So these are the two values of x. If you want to make sure your answer, then find these values from the calculator. Cot 90 and then find cot 270. If you don't have this option in the calculator, what you can do is you can put these values in the Google. You will get your answer very easily. Okay, so now we have this question, cos x equals to sin x minus 1. Again, we have none of them. Trig function is squared. We cannot apply Pythagorean identity. So what are we going to do? We are going to square on both sides. There are two ways. If you want to bring 1 on this side, on the left side, you can do this way, or you can take square on both sides directly from this way. Okay, but do not take square when two values are written at the same side, like this way, because like this question will become very difficult and it will become really long. Okay, now let's take the value, the square of this value. So it's going to be cos squared x. Oh, I will take square here, square of this, square of this. Okay, and then this will become, again, formula is same, only the sign is different. So it's going to be a squared plus b squared minus 2ab. The difference is here is minus now. So sine a is presenting sine, so sine squared x. B is 1, so plus 1 squared minus 2. A is sine x and b is 1, so we don't have to write down. Okay, now cos squared, we know this identity that cos squared x is equals to 1 minus sine squared x. Identity will not be written in this form, but I directly rearranged. So now we will replace cos squared x with 1 minus sine squared x. Why I replaced cos, why not sine? Because we can replace sine, but how you will get rid of this sine x? So that's why I am applying identity only on cos x, so we can get rid of all the cos and we have equation only with sine x function. So I will replace this one with 1 minus sine squared x equals to sine squared x plus 1 minus 2 sine x. Clear? I will take the left side terms to the right side terms and you will have 0 equals to sine squared x plus 1 minus 2 sine x, and then positive 1 will change into -1, positive sine x will change into, it will stays this, will become negative sine will become positive sine squared x. Clear? Now 1 and 1, they both will cancel out each other and we are left with 0 equals to sine squared x plus sine squared x will become 2 sine squared x minus 2 sine x. Clear? Alright, so now here in this step we can clearly see 2 sine x is a common factor, so I will take 0 equals to 2 sine x as a common factor and you will left with sine x minus 1. Alright, now it's at zero order property. You will make individual term equals to 0, so 2 sine x that is equals to 0, and 0 equals to sine x minus 1. Here sine x equals to 0, and here sine x equals to 1. To find the x values, what do? You will take inverse of these values, so it's going to be x equals to sine inverse of 0, and here x equals to sine inverse of 1. This value will be x equals to 90. This value will be x equals to sine it's pi, which is 180. You can write it down, both answer. 90 will be pi over 2. I wrote answer in degrees and radian both, but you will write only one. Okay, so next problem is secant x plus 1 equals to tan x. Again, no squared form of trig function, any of them, so we are going to square both of them. So when you will square of them, it's going to be square over here, squared over here. Now this, you should know the formula, and it's going to be secant squared x plus 1 plus 2 secant x equals to, this will be tan squared x. Now tan squared x is a Pythagorean identity, and it's going to be tan squared x equals to secant squared x minus 1. Okay, now I will replace tan squared x with the given identity, and now you are going to have secant squared x minus 1. I will make this equation equals to 0, so bring this value on the left side. Secant x plus 1 plus 2 secant x minus secant squared x plus 1 equals to 0. Secant squared x minus secant squared x will cancel out each other. Plus 1 and plus 1, you will get 2. So 2 secant x plus 2 equals to 0. Clear? Now let's simplify. You are going to have 2 secant x equals to negative 2 divided by 2 on both sides, and you will get secant x equals to negative 1. Again, same problem. We don't have the inverse of secant, right? But we can apply identity, change secant into 1 over cos. So 1 over cos x equals to negative 1 over 1, but cos x is equals to negative 1, because negative 1 over 1 is negative 1. Now let's take the inverse of this value. X equals to cos inverse of negative 1, which is x equals to a cos inverse negative 1 is 180. If you want to write it down in radian form, that will be pi. Okay, and that is the x value of your given equation. That's it. Now maybe you are thinking, why we are not finding any other value of this x. It's not possible. I explained you this before. When you have angle value on axis, like 180 is on, like at this point on negative x-axis, like this is your angle 180. At this point, x will not have any other, or cos will not have any other angle on x and y axis.